With barely a month in charge, the new federal government led by President Bola Tinubu may be on a collision course with the Nigerian Labour Congress and civil society organizations in Nigeria over the planned 40% hike in electricity tariffs across the country by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC. While the proposal is yet to come to effect until July 1 as contained in the multi-year tariff order, MYTO, and with next current service-based tariff, SBT, benchmarked on an exchange rate of 441 naira to $1 and inflation rate of 16.97% rather than the current realities of Nigeria's devaluation of currency, which stands at about 750 naira to $1, with the inflation rate at 22.22%. The increase is imminent. Already, one of the DISCO's Eco Electricity Distribution Company just this morning sent out a message to its customers notifying them that electricity tariffs are set to go higher due to the floating exchange rate. And I quote, "We may be looking at a base tariff of 100 naira per kilowatt for band C. Band that is the one that has electricity supply between 12 to 16 hours per day, and band A, which is 20 hours and above, and band B, which is 16 to 20 hours, will be much higher. If you have a prepaid meter, buying a bulk energy unit for your home or office before the end of the month may help you make some savings before you have to buy at the new rate. And for those on postpaid, estimated billing, a significant increase is imminent in your monthly billing starting from August." End of quote. And it's the announcement by the Eco Electricity Distribution Company. Now, the move seems to have set the government, labor, and the civil society organizations on a worrying path in the wake of the recent fuel subsidy removal. Well, to help us understand the issue to which we are dedicating the entire hour to, we have joining us in the studio the head of Information Nigeria Labour Congress, and also Comrade Benson Upah, who's right here and with his face cap. Thank you so much. And we're also being joined by a former spokesman of the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, AEDC, Bode Fadipe. Fadipe is also a lawyer and CEO of Sage Consulting and Communications, which engages in power sector policy analysis, advisory, and advocacy. Meanwhile, we reached out to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission for an official to join us on the program, and a spokesman promised to have someone join us, but we are yet to get hold of any NEC official yet. We hope they will join us before the end of the program. Welcome to the show. All right, and I come to you first, Bode Fadipe. I mean, you used to work with the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. When it comes to periods like this, what's usually the standard? I mean, I think based on the NEC Enabling Act, there's supposed to be a review of the MYTO twice in a year, and the first one was done, and then there's supposed to be the second one, which will start from the 1st of July. Yeah. This is statutory, and it's an agreement between NEC and the electricity distribution companies. So in the face of the current realities, people have been asking what exactly needs to be done. Should NEC go ahead, or should there be a hold based on the review of the exchange rate? And of course, you've seen what's been happening with the new government. Yes,
admittedly, it is statutory, but it also has to be triggered by two fundamental variables that you have identified in your intro, and that is the exchange rates and then the rate of inflation. Those two fundamentals, I mean, those two factors are very, very fundamental to any process of review. Every other thing is just maybe to tick the box. For instance, consulting with the customers. I mean, the DISCOs themselves will make the proposal to the regulatory agency to say, okay, in view of the current trend, we think that the time has come for you to take another look at the tariff and then adjust it in line with current realities. But you see, the question that quite a number of people have been asking is, in relation to service, what have we achieved? Because when you increase price, or you increase the selling price of any commodity, you also want to see a commensurate improvement in service. I know, for instance, that the last tariff structure that was proposed and accepted talked about service-based tariff. In other words, the service that you are giving must be equal to the money that the customers are paying, and that's why they put them in different bands: band A, band B, band C, band D, and then band E. Band A is supposed to be about 16 hours and above, or 20 hours and above. Then band B from 16 hours and above, and things like that. All the gradings are there. So the question people are asking is, okay, if you say now there is the need to increase, past increases, what has happened to them? I know that between 2012 and date, we couldn't have had less than 6 or 7.
Yes, about 6 increases that have been made. Yes.
Now, have those increases translated into quality service? Let's take, for instance, this is the rainy season. Last year, can customers say that the kind of experience they had during the rainy season last year is the kind of service, is the same kind of experience that they have this year? A lot of customers will tell you that there has not been any substantial difference. In other words, if we had poor service last year, it has not improved this year. So what is the guarantee that adding more money to it will give me better service? But again, there is a flip side to the argument. The investor is not a Father Christmas. It's not in charity business. It's in business to provide service and to also make money and to let the business remain as a going concern. In other words, if I do business today, I shouldn't die today. I should be able to stand out tomorrow. I should be able to be in business the other day. So how do I recover my money? There has always been that argument. Yes.
Actually. So, and I come to you, Benson. The Nigerian Labour Congress is kicking very hard, very, very hard, and CSOs are backing you. But this is actually a statutory requirement of the NEC, and then, of course, the power stakeholders to actually review this electricity tariff twice in a year through the MYTO that mentioned before. Joe Ajero, the president of the NLC, was smoking during the week, and the NLC says they are opposing. You are the mouthpiece of the NLC. Just talk to us about this.
Yeah, like my brother here just asked, what is the quality of service that justifies this regular or statutory increases? If you ask me, I'm going to tell you no. Well, let us go to the beginning. Now, I will situate this in the context of administrations, and I'm taking this quotation from a reliable source, that in the administration of President Jonathan, that Nigerians paid 1,000 for 64 units, and in the administration of President Buhari, they paid the same 1,000 for 16 units. And now, for this hour, we don't know what's going to happen the next hour, they are compelled to pay 1,000 for 10 units and counting. Now, compared
based on the proposal, because it's still a proposal,
yes,
that's yet to come into effect.
Usually when they tell you that they're going to do this, you know, these people are like the blind man. When the blind man tells you, I'm going to stone you, he already has a stone. Okay? So don't be surprised if you have already started paying. So what have we had? We've had a negative wage run for those who pay for these services, particularly for workers, both formal workers and informal workers, and ordinary Nigerians who are out on the street. Negative wage run, there has been no increase. Yet they have been paying incremental. In fact, whoever made that law statute, he said this is statutory proof. It's a fraudulent statute in the first place.
Well, there was a consultative meeting and all stakeholders, which I believe NLC must have been a part of it initially. Now,
what has been the delivery run, that's also been on the negative. So two principal factors that ordinarily, because every law, every agreement you make should have an exit strategy. So this arrangement must of necessity have an exit strategy. if we have continuously had a negative wage run and a negative service run, then something is patently wrong. You see, because in the final analysis, as a business person, if your product is out of the reach of the majority of the people, your service or product is out of the reach of the majority of the market people, then you are no longer in business. Even if they're patronizing your product or service, it's only a matter of time before you go out of service, before you go out of business. But Sambo, look at it this way: the reasons that I've given for for these changes that we're about to witness are that inflation run, as you mentioned, from 16.9 to 22.4 and heading for 30%. An exchange rate of 441 naira to 750 and still climbing. And the so-called removal of the 50 billion naira monthly subsidy.
The subsidy for those who cannot be able to afford it.
So now, this, in fact, it is, I want us to appreciate the fact that the rates that have given us for July, there is nothing that says that those rates are going to stay for August. So we're in a kalo market, that you go to bed, before you wake up, something cataclysmic is possible, something earth-shaking is possible to uproot you from your bed.
Isn't it based on the economic realities? I mean,
no.
Considering the fluctuations in the exchange rate and the inflation rate and all of
Sambo, actually, I saved this response for last, but since you have pricked me, I'm going to respond to this. No reasonable government acting reasonably leaves its national currency to the storms, totally to the storms of the market.
Well, that seems to be the focus of this government, that they want market-based rates.
Look, let me tell you something. Let me say this. Let me just put this clearly. Even for manufacturing countries like China, who have everything to gain by manipulating the power of the yuan, okay, they do not let this be at the mercy of the market totally. Any country that does so will come to grief, quote me. You understand? And the danger inherent in our own is that there are no socioeconomic safeguards. Like, for instance, in the advanced economies, when they play with these figures, what they're taking with the left hand, they're putting something down for you with the right hand. You know, the last time I appeared on your show, I did say that as at that time, the U.S. was subsidizing fuel consumption by $10 billion. I said so. Germany is doing the same thing. UK, they're doing the same thing. In fact, they're doing this on two modes. One, as a social responsibility to their citizenry. Two, as an emergency response to the war in Ukraine. So, but in spite of that, you saw their citizens on the streets, from London to Paris, from Paris to wherever. Even in the US, you saw the level of aggression. You saw the Germans were on the street repeatedly. So,
all right.
So in our own case here, nothing has been put on the ground. There is no iota of socio-economic incentive that will minimize this effect. We are being buffeted from left, right.
All right. I will just ask you to hold on there before I come to Bode. Let's listen to the NLC president, Comrade Joe Ajero, who is speaking and smoking fire and saying that, look, the ordinary worker on the street, the average Nigerian is going to be hit hard, and that the constant removal of these fuel subsidies without providing safeguards or, creating another opportunity through the left hand, like you have said, is something that we really need to pay attention to. So let's listen to him.
Although it is not new, in the tariff order, multi-year tariff order, they had three assumptions, to consider in the increase in tariff or its adjustment, as they may like to use. That is what they call upward adjustment. To that extent, they looked at the issue of inflation They looked at the issue of the devaluation of the currency. And then those are some of the assumptions they looked at to increase, tariff. And you look at whenever inflation goes high, they increase tariff. Increase in tariff equally creates inflation. And then it became a vicious circle that continues to grow from time to time, which happened to be a very wrong one. If they increase it now, even with the increase in the pump price of petroleum products, and then you increase tariff again, there will be another inflation, which they will turn back to claim that there's inflation. Meanwhile, their increase, had equally led to increase in tariff. So that is a wrong way of deciding the mode or the model or the option to be adopted in adjustment of tariff. I think it's not sustainable, because this will not be the end. If the prices of commodity in the market skyrockets again, they will adjust tariff again. If it comes down, they are not, apart from once they just played on our psyche that they reduce tariff, they don't bring tariff down, and this will just lead to nowhere.
Joe Ajero, President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, there speaking to market realities. And I come back to you. I thought that with the new Electricity Act that President Bola Tinubu signed, that some of these issues will be tackled.
The act itself did not tackle the issue of tariff directly. I think a major introduction in the act, which makes it substantially different from what we had in 2005, is the introduction of state governments. The ability to allow state government, or the power for state governments to participate both in the upstream and in the downstream. Initially, they were consigned to the rural electrification area, rural areas alone. But now they can now deal with the entire value chain
based on the constitution review,
which gave rise to the new Electricity Act 2023, because the Constitution Act to first of all free the states from that enclosure to be able to allow them to do it. So the Constitution did not really deal with that, but the Act itself has not removed the power that NEC has to review the tariff at any point in time based on those three parameters or two parameters that the NLC president has mentioned.
But the states are supposed to also have their own electricity regulatory councils or commission,
the houses of assembly of each state is supposed to pass their law to give effect to the establishment of their own electricity market, as we have it at the federal level now. But before then, until they pass that law, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission will still oversee their activities. As a matter of fact, by next month, NEC has called for a stakeholders engagement where all the states will discuss areas of mutual agreement, areas of disagreement, and so that they can begin to harmonize their position and move forward. But you see, for me, it's still a little bit very painful that whatever the customer is paying is not reflected in the quality of service that is likely to get. I think that is the main crux of this matter, because the ones that he had paid before, he cannot point very clearly at the value that he had gotten from it. Admittedly, market reality, but market reality will always be there. And like the gentleman, the NLC information officer said, government at every point in time has its own contribution to the life of the citizen, such that there can be some sort of support. Look at what is going to happen now. Look at petrol, for instance, 540 naira.
Still climbing.
Only God knows where it will stop. Now, I think the I and E window is about 815 naira to $1. Now, by the time and licenses have been given to importers to import fuel. By the time they import fuel at the cost of the dollar, people are already speculating that a liter of petrol may even go beyond 550. And if it goes beyond that, so it means that what you are getting by the bend, you are losing by the swing. Where will the ordinary man go?
But I want you to speak about the 50 billion naira that you know, some of these discos and NEC have been talking about, that was used by the government as subsidy. Now we hear, with these current realities now, that 50 billion naira that was used to subsidize, I think, band D and E or so,
the last leg of the consumers.
Those
yes.
in rural communities
yes.
who cannot afford.
Yes.
What is now going to happen to those people with the withdrawal of this 50 billion naira by the government?
Well, assuming that the speculation is correct, because NEC has not said anything, and understandably so, they are very conscious of the volatility of price increase. But I am presuming that those who are on band E may not necessarily be affected. I think the concentration will most of the time be on those who are on band A, band B, maybe at most band C. So if they stop it at that level, it means that it is those who have more electricity. But again, there is a danger there. Usually we say that it is those in Maitama using Abuja metropolis, Abuja geographical area, for instance. Those who are in Maitama, that's the GRA. Those who are in Garki, those who are in band A. Exactly. But the real calculation is hours of electricity, not the beauty of the geographical area. In other words, you can be in Pape, which by social classification is not on the same pedestal with Maitama. You can be in Pape. If you have 18 hours, if you have 19 hours, if you have 20 hours, you will pay the same thing with the person that is living in Maitama or Asokoro. Meanwhile, your earning per month may not be more than 30,000 naira. Well, so there's a challenge there.
These are interesting times ahead. Gentlemen, I'll just ask you to hold on while we go on this short break. When we come back, Benson, I'm coming to you to talk about some of these things. A lot of Nigerians are set to have tough times ahead because the subsidies are going and the salaries are not being increased. Challenges are here and there, and the government is working based on, quote, market realities. How do we ensure that there is a balance in all of this? Well, we'll have all of this when we come back, as the manufacturers are also complaining that what lies ahead is nothing but tough times, and some of them may be forced to actually go to other West African countries to produce. Well, another tough one ahead of us. Stay with us as we go on the short break. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching This Week, and I'm Sumna Sambo, and we're taking a look at the proposed 40% increase in electricity tariff across the country. And I have with me here the head of Information and Public Affairs of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Benson Upah, a comrade, and we also have Bode Fadipe, who's a former spokesperson of the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. He's a consultant, and we have both gentlemen helping us to take a look at all that has been happening, and we come back to the issues of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, who are at the moment taking a look at what is going on in terms of the proposal by the Nigerian government. So they've described the new regime scheduled to begin on 1st of July 2023 as simply outrageous. Now, the association noted that the federal government had increased electricity tariffs by 186% in the last 8 years without any appreciated improvement in the generation and distribution of electricity in the country. Now, the manufacturers now fear that the tariff would lead to rise in cost of production, reduction in manufacturers' profit margin, high probability of activities paralysis, and potential reduction in government's collectible revenue. They argued further that the implementation of the proposed tariff would complicate the inflationary pressure on the economy, accelerate the recession in the manufacturing sector, hurt the competitiveness of Nigerian manufacturing firms relocating their plants from Nigeria. All right, so I'll come to you, Comrade Benson Upah. Talk to us about the fears of these manufacturers. Many of them are saying that, look, if it continues, that the competitiveness of Nigerian manufacturers will be very low, and this could actually lead to a lot of challenges that you have heard me reading here.
Yeah. Before we get to the fears of manufacturers, we will start this charity from home. They say charity begins at home. So this, I will begin with our own concerns. And one of the things we have to look at is the capacity to pay of the consumers. And as I said earlier on, I mean, the quality of service delivered by the entities in the electricity subsector, from generation to
distribution,
and transmission, and so on and so forth. We've had, in spite of the charges that had been raised, or tariff, in spite of the frequent increase in tariffs and so on and so forth, they have been unable to go beyond the threshold of 5,000 megawatts all across. They have been unable to do that. And most Nigerians live in darkness. I have figures here from MAN that in 2021,
that's the Manufacturers Association
of
Nigeria,
that they spent 77.22 billion on alternative energy source. That is outside what they pay to
outside the public power supply.
Yes. And in 2022, they spent 144.5 billion outside the public power supply, whatever. Individuals like you and I, and other institutions, organizations, probably spent more than what MAN's members spent. So, coming to your question, I would say the consequences are there. The consequences are dangerous. A nation committed to darkness has a price to pay because the consequences are ominous. Its productivity in all facets, of course, are reduced.
Yeah, and a lot of people will be asking, what exactly is NLC asking for?
Just wait. We as a nation, it takes something from us. Lack of confidence as a nation that we can't do this basic thing. This leads to resentment of the citizenry and could lead to more crimes. It acts as a disincentive to investors, whether foreign direct or local indirect. It is also an additional burden to the cost of living. As it is presently, Sambo, Nigeria has the world's largest access deficit to electricity. I'm quoting the World Bank. Now, coming to MAN's concerns have been adroitly expressed. MAN says this inevitably will lead to higher costs of production and services, higher inflation, lower profits, higher probability of outward bound investment, higher probability of businesses to relocate to other parts of the world, and paralysis of manufacturers' activities. At the moment, before this proposed increase in tariff, MAN's yearly loss as a result of these energy uncertainties stands at 10.1 trillion, or 2% of our GDP. This is not good enough. And for those of us, let me also add that MAN expressed concern that the proposed hike could lead to a shrink in their operations and their capacity to create jobs. Finally, that it will also lead to a decrease in collectible revenue by government, meaning that the government is also shooting itself on the leg. So, for some of us, we too here in the studio today, we were already adults when Nigeria was a relatively manufacturing country. If you talk about the assembly plants from Kano through Bauchi to ML in Enugu, in Ibadan, Lagos, and so on and so forth. Dunlop, Berek batteries, all of this, where are they today? Now, will be reduced to a kiosk economy because of the improbabilities around our energy sector.
Yeah, and some people also are sachet-based economies.
Yes, you know,
not just kiosk-based.
Yes. And this is dangerous, and this also has this. Look, let me tell you, this has national security implication.
In what ways?
In what ways? First, let me go to the direct aspect of it, or maybe let me start by saying, when you don't have energy to power your nation, you keep shrinking in every facet, from production to education to health. Every part of your national life keeps shrinking until you have an implosion, compression. We are doing physical and psychological compression until we collide. Have you noticed something in your household? That whenever power is restored, that there is a general relief in the air.
Yeah.
Psychologically.
Oh, yes. Okay. Do you understand? This also happens at the national level. Mood swings, mood changes, everything. We are being compressed physically, economically, psychologically, politically.
All right.
And then at the level of the military, look, let me share this with you. Part of our arsenal, military gadgets are safeguarded by energy. They're protected underground. Okay? They need to be aerated. When there is no power, you are at risk of what happened in Lagos.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they are given preference whenever,
but sometimes sometimes they don't even have it. Sometimes the military.
All right, I bring Bode in.
Sometimes they don't even have it.
I want you to also speak to the concerns by these manufacturers, and they are saying that, look, if it continues this way, it's going to be a huge challenge. And here is the government also saying that, look, we have to face market-based realities, and this government that we have here is a market-based friendly government, and they are saying that the market should decide what the real rates should be like. What's your concern?
Now, from available data, you will see that there is hardly any body in business in this country, whether it's SME, whether it's people in business at the level of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, that will not make provision for electricity, including, surprisingly enough, but not shocking, even the producers of electricity themselves. There's hardly any disco office you go to that you won't find a generator there. That's an indictment to a large extent. That okay,
it's an embarrassment.
We also don't have so much confidence in what we are doing. Now, so if the cost of providing for electricity continues to go higher, it means that the fund that is available for investment is also dropping. Because again, those who are going to buy the goods, their purchasing power has been affected by several other factors. The investor will always look for how to maximize profit, and that's where you come to economy of scale. So if it's cheaper for me to produce in Ghana, putting everything together, I'd rather move my industry to Ghana, and that's what Dunlop did several years ago. I know of Michelin and several other companies like that have moved out. People go to China to buy goods because of the economy of scale. Yeah. Even though you have to travel over a long distance, but when you put everything together, the labor, your transport fare, everything, by the time you put it together, you find out that it's a lot cheaper to produce in your own outside your own country than to produce in your country.
Yeah, but we end up exporting jobs by doing that.
Exactly the point I want to make. So what is the consequence of that? It means you are the one subsidizing or sustaining another economy while your own economy is suffering here. Nice. And guess what? It's not easy to japa. Now, UK has closed the door against those who are coming to study and bringing their families. They say it's you alone that is going to school that can come and school there. Your family is no longer coming. Otherwise, before now, maybe about some few months ago, Nigerians took advantage of that opportunity to export themselves and their families and go out. So what are we talking about? It will create more problems for us.
So what are the solutions? What do we do now? Because statutorily, these tariffs would have to be reviewed. And from what we hear, NEC and the discos are supposed to do that from the 1st of July. So what do we do now?
You see, for me, the putting it in the statute is to make sure that it's not done illegally. But must it be done? Yes, it's provided for in the statute, but must it be done? Are there no other ways by which we can manage this situation? I think people need to sit down and think outside the box. Must you throw money at every problem? Because the meaning of this is that we are throwing money at every problem. Must we throw money at every problem? I don't think that
but if you operated a disco, by now you would have known that with the exchange rate going high, the cost of production has gone high. Would you be producing, or are you asking the government to come back and bring subsidies? Is that what you are saying?
No,
I mean,
just
hold on, let him answer
one way or
that.
the other, both parties have to meet themselves at a certain point. Government cannot just close its eyes 100% and say, because even if government wants to do that, it's probably going to cost much more than what it is costing now. If government says, I remove my hand 100%, I can assure you that discos may be tempted to say we are selling a unit of electricity at 200 naira.
Okay, so let me bring you in from the social angle.
Sambo, I am quite delighted with the thoughts of my brother, a friend, Bode here. What I would want to say about the idea of a solution is that we have to go and re-examine the basis of the contracts that were entered into when the power sector was
through the former Power Sector Reform Act, which has now been changed.
Privatized. You know, today we have two dominant views or two dominant schools of thought. There is this school of thought that says government defaulted in its obligation to the new entities that took over NEPA. The government was supposed to put in some money, which it didn't do, and that created a problem. There is a second school of thought that holds a view that what government refused to give to NEPA, it gives to the new entities that took over the assets of NEPA. That in spite of that, there has been no improvement. What we have had has been a downward trend in performance, in contradiction to the promises made that once a private sector took over the generation and management of power, that the power sector will grow and that even the cost will come down. But you see, when you look at the school, if you look at the two schools of thought sample, something, whether you belong to the first or second one, there is something we cannot run away from. And that thing is that deficit of capacity in finance and technology.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some of the discos going down, being claimed by banks because no investments have come in.
Because I know what I'm saying. You understand me? See, deficit. So they lack capacity.
Are you saying that politicians bought some of these discos and all of that?
Sample, allow me. Let me just say this. They lack capacity financially and technically, and this has a problem. But then underlying all of this is this issue. These contracts, given the way they have been executed, what can be done? Because the parties are not happy. Government obviously is not happy. The entities are not happy. It is an unholy marriage. And when there is such a marriage, you have two options. You either get out or you continue to stew in your own juice. So for us, review these contracts, cancel them, and do the needful.
All right.
And I tell you this, see.
Very quickly.
And this is coming at a cost, because a school of thought holds that if these contracts are revoked, this will be coming at a tremendous cost to government.
Yeah, because there are contracts that were entered.
Let me tell you, yet the same time it's coming to us, our upholding the terms and conditions of these contracts are hurting us, hurting government, hurting the country, hurting the citizenry. So we are in a situation of the devil's alternative. Okay? So, but we have to be brave enough to take a decision.
All right.
But I'm still come back to because I'm not done
very quickly, because I have to bring Bode in. Yes. But before I bring you in, this is what one expert has said, that indexing the cost of electricity on the dollar is a huge mistake, because most of the inputs of electricity supply are local. Sure. The discos are also holding Nigerians to ransom by failing to increase the supply base, thereby spreading the tariffs across a broader spectrum of consumers to reduce the unit cost of electricity. Now, the number of consumers hasn't increased. I think they say it's about 7 million consumers that have been metered all through the country and all of that. And this expert is saying that, look, the idea of tying our electricity supply with what happens to the dollar rate is actually very wrong, because, I mean, most of the inputs of electricity supply are local. So, in trying to find solutions, what do we do? What should the consumer be doing? Because whether they like it or not, it looks like NEC will eventually go ahead and the discos, and the price per kilowatt of electricity will be increased. Hopefully by July.
Before I come to your question, let me speak further on this issue of the tariff. Now, one of the reasons why most Nigerians who understand the workings in the sector are quarreling with tariff increases, because government has put in as much as 6 trillion naira into the power sector.
Despite privatization.
Which is the point I want to make. Yet, one of the fundamental reasons why government said let it go is because I no longer have money to put in this sector. Therefore, let it go, let private concerns come in, because we believe in the efficiency of the private sector. But now, the same government that said, I don't have money, has put in 6 trillion. If that 6 trillion had gone to NEPA, I can assure you our sector will not be where it is today. It would have, because as at the time that privatization was coming in, we were beginning to see some degree of stability in the power sector. But that again is subject to a lot of debate. But what is not subject to debate is the amount of money that government has put into the sector. If you say this is a private concern, how many times has government given money to banks? How many times has government given money to even manufacturers association, members of manufacturers? If manufacturers have that 6 trillion available to them, I can assure you that unemployment rate would have fallen by now, and we will have a lot of confidence. So to that extent, the argument that we need to increase tariff, they need to tell us what has happened to that 6 trillion. So coming back to your question of why should, that it is not reasonable to tie the tariff to the dollar. Here I beg to disagree. At the risk of at the risk of playing not the devil's advocate now, but for that expression, the point I want to make here is this. Who manufactures transformer in this country? Nobody. Who manufacture? There are so many components that power sector is using. Take gas, for instance. The moment the manufacturer of electricity, which is the generators, the moment they produce their electricity with gas, and our power sector is skewed in favor of the gas plant, the moment they produce with gas, it means that we have to denominate in dollar. We have to calculate with dollar. So there is no way by which dollar will not influence the pricing of electricity in the power sector. That expert should get that.
And that means there's also no way that the price will not go up since it's dollar denominated.
I agree with you, but the question we are asking is, if government had allowed that 6 trillion that it has spent, to be spent by its own entity, or had allowed its own entity to run side by side with private because what we are saying is a private monopoly. We are coming from a public monopoly to a private monopoly, and a big problem with monopolies is that they are not under pressure to perform.
Okay, very quickly, just before I let you go, I want you to ask, to advise the consumer. What should consumers, the ordinary Nigerians, do? Because, like you both have explained, we seem to be in a very deep hole.
Well,
very quickly.
Yeah,
before
I tell you what the consumer will do.
Very quickly.
Well, have you read the book entitled The Confessions of an Economic Hitman?
Yeah, I mean.
Power plants, energy, sources of corporate fraud and security challenges to nations and all of that. If you have read that, I'm delighted. Coming to what you said, my advice to consumers is that they should resist this. They should form groups, pressure groups, and resist this impunity within the ambit of the law.
Isn't that what the NLC is doing?
Very
quickly.
And then let me also say this. Government, I will advise the government that it should not take the path of market fundamentalism. If it is going to take the path of market the way it is doing, it has to put certain things in place first. He made that mistake. I call it now a mistake in the case of PMS, where I didn't do the needful before doing the announcement.
Before removing the subsidy.
And now the same thing is happening here. You are removing energy. The same World Bank and IMF that I tell you, these are distortions. They are the one creating comfort zones for the citizenry in their whatever. So government, and let me tell you, Sambo, let me tell you this, Sambo, let me tell you.
Yeah.
By this singular act of tariff hike, our debt stock has risen from 72 trillion to 81 trillion and still climbing. We understand?
You're talking about the issues of the dollar.
Okay.
So very quickly, Bode, I have to bring you in. Very quickly, in 30 seconds, what should the consumer and the government be doing at this point? That is realistic,
Yes, I think for government, government needs to now give us a government that is effective. What do I mean by that? By the time we are able to eliminate corruption, because part of the problem we have in this country is corruption as a result of bad government. If government can give us at least, we know that it's difficult to completely eliminate corruption, but when you reduce it to a very low level, the money that people are stealing will be available for investment. What we are paying for today is lack of investment in the sector over a long period of time. The Tinubu administration is an unfortunate administration. It's coming at a time when there are so many problems on the ground, and it is the one that has to bear that responsibility. Unfortunately,
well, and he has decided to follow the market-based approach to free up, the issues of subsidies and all of that. Well, it looks like it's a tough game for the average electricity consumer, and all of us are part of those consumers. We just hope that better times will be brought in place through some sort of negotiations by the government and, of course, NEC and other stakeholders. But it's tough times, really, really tough times ahead for average Nigerians, and it's based on this that we want to thank you for staying with us. We've been hearing from Bode Fadipe, who is former spokesman of the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, and he's also a lawyer and the CEO of Sage Consulting and Communications, which engages in power sector policy analysis, advisory and advocacy. We must thank you for coming on the show. And of course, our own comrade Benson Upah is the head of information and public affairs at the Nigerian Labour Congress. And the NLC has been speaking on behalf of Nigerians. The CSOs have also been backing it, that look, something needs to be done. This 40% hike in electricity prices, the electricity tariff that may be coming up any moment from now is something that needs to be reviewed based on what has happened with the removal of subsidies for petroleum products. And we must thank you immensely for joining us to take a look at all these issues, and we hope to have you again some other time. Stay with us. I'm Sambo.